One of the most anticipated Sumeru characters, Dehya has finally arrived to Genshin Impact, but not without some heavy scrutiny. Designed to be a high resistance tank that's also able to pack a punch, she attempts to combine both a supportive and sub DPS role into one character. YouTube Frongs, welcome to a completely detailed and efficient Dehya guide covering the most essential information you'll need to make your girl boss shine as bright as she can. This guide will focus on maximizing her abilities and make the most out of her current design. The Genshin community is already fully aware of her design flaws. If you're curious about my opinions, feel free to check out my first video on Dehya. Here in this video, we are focused on making the best of her that we can. We'll be covering her talents, use cases, optimal weapons and artifacts, constellations, and team comps alongside a gameplay showcase. Let's begin. From C0 to C6, Dehya balances between a damage redirecting tank and a pyro burst DPS. As her constellations increase, Dehya gains more firepower on her burst DPS, putting more focus on her DPS capabilities and her damage redirection. She's the first to introduce a higher form of interruption resist that will be termed gold resist in this video for lack of better terminology. On top of providing gold resist to the team, her scalings also benefit from both attack and HP, complementing her natural bulk and solidifying her identity as a bruiser. The focus of her kit centers both around her elemental skill and burst. Elemental skill is responsible for providing this gold resist and damage redirection, allowing herself and her teammates to confidently complete full rotations without worrying about knockback. Elemental burst is responsible for nearly all her pyro DPS and temporarily transforms her into a brawling machine. Normal charge attack doesn't really do much unless infused, but low multipliers make this a poor investment. At most may be used for Favonius procs or filler attacks. Let's dive into some necessary details. Normal charge attack. Dehya's normal charge attack is standard stuff. Relatively slow claymore hits and a standard charge sequence. With very low multipliers, even below niche 4 stars like Sayu and Dori, there is little incentive to invest for Bennett infused DPS and should be left untouched for weapon passives like Favonius or minimal investment for filler damage. Elemental skill, Dehya's second highest priority talent investment, responsible for damage redirection, this gold resist from Ascension 1, and very minor DPS. There are 3 multipliers to take note of. The first and second multipliers are the E's activation damage. First multiplier is the first tap, and second multiplier is if you tap E again or the second tap with the field already out. Neither of those two generate energy and both are strictly attack scaling. The third multiplier is the coordinated attack every 2.5 to 3 seconds. This generates 1 pyro particle on successful coordinated attack and scales both on attack and a max HP percent. Constellation Zero's duration is 12 seconds on a 20-second cooldown, giving 4 to 5 coordinated attacks and particles. C2 increases this to 18 seconds, giving 6 to 8 coordinated attacks and particles. While the field is down and your character is inside it, 2 things happen. Your interruption resist is increased and your active character takes reduced damage, with the rest redirected to Dehya as mitigated damage over 10 seconds. With the Ascension 1 passive, first tap E grants you gold resist for 9 seconds, and Dehya will take a 100% of the mitigated damage as damage over time. With the first and second tap E, she's granted gold resist and Dehya takes 40% of the mitigated damage as damage over time. For simplicity's sake, Dehya's rotations will almost always double tap E right away to activate all of the field's perks, and because second tap doesn't refresh the duration, just repositions it. If she ever drops below 40% HP, whether naturally or by her E, Ascension 4 passive will heal her for a total of 50% max HP on a 20-second cooldown. Elemental Burst, Dehya's highest priority talent investment, responsible for nearly all of her DPS. All of this text basically says she'll remove any fiery fields upon activation, gain increased resist, and then fire 6 to 10 pyro damage punches before 1 AoE pyro dive. Each successive pyro punch will minorly increase the speed of successive punches. And even though she removes her own field, her interruption resist is strong enough to take a full overload within her burst, so she only loses the field's particle generation. Within her burst, her E and left click are chained to her burst attacks, but do not count as skill or normal charge attack hits or damage. So unfortunately, usual supports like Xingqiu, Yell, and Beidou do not synergize with her. Also, don't get frozen and don't jump. You'll need to jump to break a freeze, and jumping ends her burst form. Her burst multipliers scale on both attack and HP percent, and are not weak but not particularly strong. At level 6, a full 11 hit burst totals for 1577% attack and 27% max HP over 4 seconds. With a 70 energy cost and 18 second cooldown, she has a dangerously expensive burst. If prioritizing her burst for maximum damage, expect 150% plus energy recharge requirements on top of energy supportive teammates. So, talent investment, elemental burst over elemental skill over normal charge attack. Elemental burst is honestly the only meaningful multiplier upgrade by talent level, but the elemental skill does add DPS over time, and the normal charge attack can act as filler DPS, but it's the lowest priority. Alright, so you're like me. You really like her design, you know her kit has problems, but that's okay. You still want to invest into her and utilize what she can do. For most players then, the easiest way to gain value out of her is through her tank utility elemental skill. It has no energy requirements, and while its uptime is only 60% at C0, the gold resist form it grants for 9 seconds is a very useful mechanic with high value in certain comps that really hate being interrupted. So for a full tank build, hop down double E, swap out, and execute a full combo of your DPS's rotation. Now keep in mind that your active character will still be taking damage, though reduced, and Dehya can only heal herself with her Ascension 2 passive. So you'll still need some additional form of survivability or finish the job before your HP falls to lethal levels. Alternatively, if you're a veteran player who already maxed the Abyss and wants something different to try out, burst DPS is the other route. Is going to need decently high investment with really solid artifacts for both DPS and her energy recharge needs, but it is possible, just not budget friendly. And then finally, running Elemental Mastery Dehya for Dendro related team comps is also possible, but without Constellation 2 for the extended E and possible problems with her E hitbox make it much less reliable than other known means. We'll get to those details later. Weapons. So depending on your use case, Dehya's weapon options will vary. DPS Dehya is a hybrid attack HP scaler with heavy focus on attack because all of her DPS is in her burst, and that is a hefty 70 energy cost. Energy recharge is also a necessary stat to include when building her up. Her signature Bacon Claymore provides her the best selection of offensive stats for DPS Dehya. 20 to 40% attack from the passive, unshielded 32% HP, and 30% plus crit rate from the secondary stat. Add on 50% plus recharge from 2-piece emblem and various substats, and she can rotate relatively consistently. Besides her signature, here are the most practical choices that I would recommend for general use. 5-star Redhorn. Huge crit damage stat stick, the second strongest weapon choice as it provides an easy template for a decent crit ratio and balances well with common external buffs. 5-star Wolf's Gravestone and the Unforged. They are both attack percent stat sticks, decent choice but lose value when running Bennett. Unforged needs on-field stacking over time, and a shield is out of the question as it'll be quickly destroyed as she stacks up on-field. 4-star Akumaru. Best in slot gacha 4-star, best at R5 as well. Attack secondary and a burst damage passive, meaningful for Dehya and synergizes with her high 70 cost. 4-star Fish Claymore, a weaker version of Akumaru but F2P friendly as a free event weapon from way back. 4-star Serpent Spine, crit rate secondary and situational passive. Taking damage off-field will not reduce the spine stacks, but when she is swapped on-field, she will quickly lose stacks if she has a DOT that ticks down, so be careful. 4-star Lithic Blade and Blacklift Slasher. Generic stat sticks, nothing particularly special. Their passives are situational depending on enemy layout and team comp. Energy recharge based weapons like Favonius and some of the F2B craftables and Sacrificial Greatsword will always have somewhat of a supportive use if that's your intent for Dehya. Favonius will likely be the favorable choice for a tank support Dehya. Elemental Mastery based weapons like Rain Slasher, Blood Tainted, and the Mailed Flower can be situationally strong in Vape team comps. HP weapons like the Bell and Ferris Shadow are just stat sticks with little to no additional value. They can be considered for tank Dehya, if not running common energy recharge supportive weapon like Favonius. Now for artifacts and stat priority. Depending on how you intend to build your Dehya, different artifact sets will be optimal. DPS Dehya. 4-piece emblem will be the unconditional strongest DPS choice for her, and the extra 20% recharge from 2-piece is extremely beneficial for her stat priorities. 4-piece Crimson Witch is a viable alternative for generic or vape Dehya, and 4-piece Lava Walker is a viable alternative for mono pyro Dehya. Tank Dehya. 4-piece Tenacity will provide the best supportive uptime out of any of the supportive sets, following her ease 60 to 90% uptime, and additionally grant her 20% HP. For the adventurous, 4-piece Ocean Hued Clam set on tank Dehya has had some unique success, turning her Ascension 4 passive healing into meme damage. For Elemental Mastery Dehya, any related 4-piece Elemental Mastery set or 2-piece combo will be fine. Optimal DPS 2-piece combo centers around 2-piece Emblem and 2-piece Crimson Witch, with 2-piece Emblem replaceable if your artifacts are godly enough to provide 40 to 50% from substats. Otherwise, any attack, HP, pyro, or burst damage related pieces will be fine. Main stat choices. For standard pyro burst DPS, at C0, attack is much stronger than HP, Pyro Goblet, and a crit mask. 20 to 30% recharge from substats with emblem, 40 to 50% without emblem. The energy recharge is optional if you care about decent burst looping. Constellation 1 or higher, attack or HP percent timepiece. HP timepiece is a suitable alternative with C1, which we'll get to, and balances her burst multiplier better if running Bennett to compensate the attack. Vaporize. Elemental Mastery timepiece is an alternative choice. Energy recharge timepiece. Though she is energy hungry, in my opinion, main stat energy recharge sacrifices way too much DPS. Tank Dehya, HP, and then HP or crit rate mask, depending on if you're using Favonius. EM Dehya, triple EM. Both tank and elemental mastery Dehya are purely reliant on her E uptime. Disregarding burst, you can basically ignore energy recharge if you want to. Alright, baseline build with weapons and artifacts is complete, so here's my recommendation of stat thresholds. Dehya has HP percent ascension, so unless you're running a crit rate or crit damage weapon, maintaining a good crit ratio for DPS Dehya might be difficult. And also, because of her different build paths, I'll be providing a generously wide stat range to accommodate for the differences. Keep in mind that my current Dehya is running the Bacon Claymore, so she has crit rate bonus. Tank Dehya, 55,000 HP plus. If you're running triple HP, should be pretty standard. Elemental Mastery Dehya, the highest EM you can get. Doesn't really matter anything else. DPS Dehya, 30,000 HP minimum, which should be easy with base stats and her ascension stat. Attack, 100% attack is fine. Energy recharge, 140% plus. This includes the two-piece emblem, so about 20% plus from substats. It really makes a large difference if you care about her burst. If you're running a crit weapon, 75+% crit rate and 150+% crit damage. If you're running a non-crit weapon, 60% plus crit rate and 120% plus crit damage. And finally, ascending her to 90 is valuable for base HP, base attack, and HP percent ascension. Constellations. As you may or may not know, Dehya will be going to the standard banner starting 3.6. So, constellations for her are much more realistic for the average player. In general, her constellations grant some very valuable quality of life to both her burst and elemental skill, with more focus on burst DPS the more constellations you obtain. C1, plus 20% max HP and more max HP percent scaling to both her elemental skills coordinated attack and both multipliers of her burst. This is most notable for her burst, increasing the max HP scaling from 2 to 3% to 8 to 9%. Artifact wise, this makes an HP timepiece 120% the efficiency than an attack percent timepiece. In other words, it's 20% stronger. In comparison to Constellation 0, where an HP percent timepiece is only 35% the efficiency, in other words, 65% weaker. This is a pretty massive upgrade to the HP scaling of her burst and allows either attack or HP timepiece to be effective depending on available buffs from your team. At C0, attack timepiece is significantly stronger than an HP timepiece. C2, second tap E extends her total E duration by 6 seconds for a total of 18 seconds. This improves her field uptime from 60 to 90%, benefiting particle gen, damage mitigation, normal resist, and DPS. Unfortunately, the increased gold resist is tied to her A1 passive, which is a flat 9-second duration. C3, C5 plus 3 levels. C4, flat energy refund and max HP percent restoration on the punches of her burst. On an average 10-hit burst, this refunds 15 flat energy and 25% max HP, making her average effective burst cost decrease to 55 from 70. This effectively reduces her energy recharge requirements from 140 to 180 down to 120 to 150%. Constellation 6, burst crit rate plus 10%. Every punch that successfully crits grants plus 15% crit damage and plus 0.5 seconds burst duration, capping at 4 stacks or plus 60% crit damage and plus 2 seconds. Ideally, this is achieved by the 5th punch or 2 seconds in, leaving the remaining 4 seconds for max buff on 10 to 11 more hits. It's definitely the biggest boost to her burst damage, not only granting 10 crit rate and 60 crit damage, but also plus 50% time duration on her burst. On average, you can expect a 60 to 75% DPS increase from just her C6 depending on your artifact distribution and team comp buffs. And with the 2-second duration extension, C4 also benefits more by refunding even more flat energy and returning HP. So overall, Dehya's constellations are pretty well distributed in terms of strength. C1 is a very obvious DPS buff and makes HP timepiece equal or slightly stronger than attack timepiece. C2 increases her tank uptime to 90%. C4 reduces her burst energy recharge requirements for better looping and more offensive stat priority. And then C6 grants a massive increase in raw burst DPS and makes C4 a little better. No need to rush on the constellations though, as she'll be joining the standard banner very shortly. Alright, so despite her gameplay design restricting the usual popular Hydra synergies with Pyro DPS, Dehya still brings a solid variety of team comps to the table. Are they the strongest forms of those compositions? No. Does she personally make use of them quite well? In my opinion, yes. So the highest DPS team comp Dehya can offer is Mono Pyro. Consisting of the classic Pyro trio Kazuha plus Xiangling plus Bennett, Dehya herself is able to heavily strengthen herself amidst the raw buffs from Kazuha and Bennett alongside Xiangling's raw Pyronado DPS. Now of course, Kazuha plus Xiangling plus Bennett is already incredibly strong and does not need Dehya at all to perform well, and in fact would prefer a Hydra support to enable reverse fate for Xiangling. But we already know that, so let's let Dehya have her time. Rotation is very straightforward. Dehya double E into Bennett EQ, into Kazuha EQ optional E, into Xiangling EQ, into Dehya. Alright, so the strongest team comp that Dehya provides the most utility for is Ganyu Burn Melt. Consisting of Ganyu plus Bennett, Nahida plus Dehya, Dehya's role is providing gold resist to Ganyu during crucial rotation points, enabling 3+ fully melted charge attacks without worrying about knockbacks. And even when gold resist is on cooldown, normal resist from her fiery field is most of the time enough to prevent knockback. Best at Constellation 2 with Dehya's 90% E uptime, still usable if not. Standard rotation, Nahida E optional Q, Dehya double E, Bennett EQ into Ganyu. Dehya's full tank utility can also be used to support on-field DPS like Wanderer and Yoimiya, who lose massive amounts of DPS when interrupted. Though Dehya's uptime is not 100%, the duration is long enough to provide meaningful value for these DPS rotations. In this demo, while Yoimiya is clearly not optimal against these consecrated beasts, with Dehya she is actually able to complete proper rotations assuming she isn't displaced out of the fiery field. And if you really want to test her tank capabilities, throw her on the field against some high-hitting enemies and test her A4's healing to the limit. Add in 4-piece Ocean-Hued Clam set and you unironically have some of that healing converted to pseudo AoE damage. It's actually impressive how this part of her kit is self-sustainable. Now, my personal favorites are the following reactionary team comps. First, Vape Dehya. Consisting of Mona replacing Xiangling in the Mono Pyro comp, with the proper rotation, Dehya's burst is able to vaporize on standard 3-hit ICD during Mona's Omen buff, with Mona's E reapplying Hydro. This is the standard damage per screenshot team comp, maximizing buffs for an on-field DPS. In order to prevent stolen vaporizes, Kazuha's Q can be used after Dehya's short Q rotation and provide consistent DPS while the team regenerates energy to repeat the rotation. So the rotation in question, Dehya double E, Bennett EQ, Kazuha E into Mona EQ with Thrilling Tales, swap into Dehya Q, full rotation into Kazuha Q, and then energy generation plus loop the rotation. Second, Forward Melt Dehya, consisting of double Cryo plus Dehya plus Bennett. This team focuses on heavy off-field cryo application and proper rotations to enable Dehya's burst to forward melt every 3 hits. With proper rotations, Dehya is able to melt 4 times in her first 10 punches, and then melt her AoE dive attack, which has its own ICD, separate from her other attacks, for a total of 5 melts in 11 hits. Most popular supports for this case are Rosaria and Kaya, both of which have excellent off-field bursts and low energy requirements to consistently repeat the rotation. Combining double cryo and Rosaria's crit transfer, this comp can also increase Dehya's crit consistency if your build is lacking in that department. Rotation, Dehya double E, Bennett EQ, Rosaria EQ, Kaya optional where you want to E before or after the Q, and then Dehya Q. And lastly, Dendra-related comps. While Dehya's E can work for these compositions, it is heavily limited by uptime and coordinated attack consistency. With Constellation 2, her E usage with Burgeon is acceptable. However, you will need to play it very precisely around her field. A simple comparison with Thoma shows the utility difference between uptime, faster power application, and following the active character. Do not worry about positioning. And for some situations, there's just nothing you can do to help Dehya Burgeon. Thanks to Zeshef for this unfortunate clip of hitboxes affecting Dehya's Burgeon range.
Wait a second. Wait a goddamn second. Some enemies' hitbox is too high, so it doesn't actually explode the seeds.
Overall, it's not that great, but can still be used for big Burgeon nukes since this allows the dendro cores to pile up before a detonation every 3 seconds. And that concludes a complete exhaustive guide on Dehya for version 3.5. While she may not be one of the strongest characters in the game, I've still been enjoying her quite extensively and will be making some more content with her in the future. One day, when I do get C6 Dehya from off rate ups, we'll make her the brawling queen. Until then, thanks as always for watching. Let me know what you think of her in the comments, and we'll see you next time. Take care.